State budget hearings beginning as local officials are looking to get power to increase gas taxes. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm your host, Greg Bishop. You'll be with us here for the Center Square Daily later on in the day. And next week, we will have Illinois in Focus as part of the Center Square Daily. So hopefully you tune in for that. All right, well, a new survey says Illinois has the highest tax rates in the country. According to Wallet Hub, they released a report Wednesday. The land of Lincoln has the highest state and local taxes and the highest annual tax rates on median households, coming in at 53% higher than the U.S. average. Now, the lowest tax rates were found in Alaska, Delaware, and Wyoming. Surprised? Illinoisans, you see the stories regularly about the ongoing taxing issues, from the high property taxes to the corporate tax issues, to knowing that it costs more for an employer to hire employees in Illinois for things like workers' comp costs and such, and potential litigation concerns, and the costs are higher in Illinois than some of the surrounding states for employers to hire employees. So these are just some of the costs impacting the economy. But could some of that be changing? Of course, we're in a new budget season. Fiscal year 2027 is set to start coming up in June. The end of June, I think July 1st is the first day of the new budget. So we're in the final months before the legislature has to pass a budget to get it on the governor's desk. Now, the governor in February proposed a slightly smaller budget, a little bit of belt tightening, and that's, of course, $54 billion, which is 42% more than what the governor had when he came into office 7 years ago. So he's proposing that, but of course he can propose things. It's the legislature that has to pass that. So they are, of course, going through their budgeting process. Illinois Secretary of State Alexi Janulius was the first one up during a House General Services Appropriations Committee hearing yesterday in Chicago. And he laid out that you've got a budget request for this particular agency. They're asking for more. And one thing that popped out to me was an increase they're asking for in an election year, about the possibility of some constitutional amendments being proposed. Here is Alexi Janulius, the Secretary of State of Illinois.
We've proposed an $844.6 million budget. Our overall budget is comprised of revenue from general revenue as well as federal and special funds. It marks a slight increase of 1.68% from our fiscal year 2026 budget approved by the General Assembly last year. For GRF, we had $24 million in increases, including $21.5 million, for required union contract increases, and $2.5 million for the potential of a constitutional amendment mailing, which is beyond our control.
Now, that constitutional amendment mailer, something that the Secretary of State would have to do to send every registered voter a pamphlet about what is on the ballot when it comes to constitutional amendments. So you're talking more than $2 million in costs they're adding into their budget requests because of that prospect. And there are several proposed constitutional amendments that could come forward, including a change to the state's income tax. And saw something similar to this back in 2020. The progressive income tax, where they would have had different rates for different earners with higher rates for higher earners. Voters rejected that. They did not approve that amendment. But now, here we are, almost 6 years later, and another proposal is coming forward to change the state's income tax to allow for a surcharge on millionaires. Multiple different proposals there. How would that money be spent? And they're estimating if they increase the surcharge on millionaires, quote unquote surcharge and income tax, then it would raise billions of dollars. And some are wanting to give property tax relief. Because again, as you saw, Wallet Hub saying Illinois has the highest tax rates and property taxes among those. And clearly the state is looking to pay off debts, got $140+ billion of unfunded pension liabilities and increased funding for local education and such. So all of these things compounding costs on the taxpayer, and how they would split up the billions of dollars from a millionaire surcharge. I guess those are the different proposals that there are. I guess they want to tell taxpayers, those who are supporting this idea, where they're going to spend their money. So you've got that in the mix. The possibility of before May 31st, we find out if there's going to be a constitutional amendment on the November ballot. to ask for a change in the income tax. So we'll be watching that closely. But the Illinois Municipal League, they're looking for some of their own things, including a possible authority to increase gas taxes for some communities. And this comes as people are seeing the pump prices increase and conflict overseas with Iran. That had Mount Vernon Mayor talk about John Lewis talk about what they want to see the legislature pass for municipalities to increase taxes.
So I'm here today to address some legislation that would expand local authority by allowing all non-home rule municipalities to impose a local motor fuel tax. As the mayor of the city of Mount Vernon, which is a home rule community, I recognize the importance the city plays as a hub for surrounding non-home rule municipalities. The transportation networks that connect our communities do not stop at our municipal boundaries, and the funding challenges faced by neighboring non-home rule communities directly affect the region as a whole. Under current law, only non-home rule communities located in Cook County or those with a population exceeding 100,000 are authorized to impose a local non-home rule motor fuel tax without a referendum. This creates an uneven system that limits financial flexibility for many of our small communities. House Bill 1283, sponsored by Representative DeLuca, would authorize all non-home rule municipalities to impose a local motor fuel tax by ordinance capped at 3 cents per gallon.
So that could be something the Municipal League can get across the finish line. Not sure. They've been proposing this for several years in a row with their Moving Cities Forward agenda at the State House. They've got other things they want to do about, ensuring there's lower costs for local governments so that they don't have to increase property taxes and, issues about transparency and filing requirements and such. So the Municipal League regularly every year has their agenda that they push there, but this one as well is on that agenda item year after year after year. But this proposal to allow for local governments to vote to increase the gas tax, that would just tack on more to a state that already has the second highest gas tax in the country, highest in the region for sure. I mean, when we doubled the gas tax in 2019 and added on an annual increase pegged to the cost of living increase every year, you can see that continues to increase. So some municipalities, like in Chicago and Cook County, they can increase the gas tax even further with a local gas tax. Well, now the Municipal League, looking again, year after year after year, they push for this to give them the authority to increase that gas tax locally for all municipalities so they can all tap into that extra gas tax. But would this be necessary? Because again, according to AAA, you've got the average gas price per gallon in Illinois increasing more than 30 cents last week to $3.32. What's behind that? Well, you've got a variety of factors. Strait of Hormuz, vital connection between the Persian Gulf and open waters, and Iran has reportedly closed the straits. Many oil tankers not able to get through and hesitant to enter that area with military operations going on, so that could be adding to it, according to the AAA, to a statement from AAA to the Center Square. So you got the ongoing questions about Iran and other things impacting gas prices, but that's just the gas price. That's not the gas tax. So while Illinois has a higher gas tax, while everybody across the country is paying the higher price, Missouri residents are going to be paying lower at the pump than Illinois residents because Missouri's gas taxes are lower than Illinois' gas taxes. So you can see how that works. But again, would municipalities need to ask to increase the gas tax if they weren't having their share of income tax dollars withheld from the state? Bear with me. Let's get into the weeds. LGDF, the Local Government Distributed Fund. From my understanding, covering the State House now for 12 years or so, the Local Government Distributed Fund was an agreement among the municipalities and the state of Illinois back when the state of Illinois had an income tax, and municipalities, and they were looking, hey, we should have our own income tax. That'd give us some revenue. Well, instead of having that happen to possibly increase income taxes across the board for all residents, the state said, well, how about we give you 10% of the income tax to municipalities through a local government distributed fund? So that 10% of the overall state income tax was meant to keep locals from trying to get their own local income tax. Could you imagine that? So you've got the issue of the LGDF not being 10% for several years. A decade plus ago, they lowered it from 10% to about like 6%. It's gone up to about close to 7% and still not fully at that 10% level. So that has municipalities regularly saying we have to crunch things. We've got budgets that are tight. We've got pensions that need to be paid. And that's why they say they're having to increase property taxes locally. And that's why they're having to find other avenues to tax more. Brad Cole, Illinois Municipal League president, he says that it's a big issue that they need to address at the State House.
We still think fully funding state shares revenues is important, which means put us back at 10%. Give us the dime out of every dollar. If the state can't run off 90 cents, I don't think it's the municipalities that are the problem. And if you look at that funding, while LGDF has had growth because of growth in the income tax, so has the state's budget. In the last couple of decades, the state's budget has gone from $30 billion to $56 billion. And during that time, we have lost $1 billion a year in funding. So this is a matter of priorities, and these local officials have to be responsive to the residents that they see every day. And we think that maintaining at a minimum the current rate is reasonable, but also pushing us back to the fully funded rate.
So the fully funded rate of 10% and how that impacts local communities. Another issue that's been on people's minds is what's going to happen to the Chicago Bears and the idea of mega projects. Well, Senate's Minority Leader John Curran, he was at an unrelated news conference talking about the cost of houses and housing. And, of course, the issue of the Chicago Bears came up with the question of these mega project bills that are out there.
We have real concerns that the shift is going to create an even greater burden to locally property tax payers in that surrounding area. I think I hope that's a bridge or a divide that we can bridge, but ultimately we want to make sure that we are also protecting the other property taxpayers in the area. I certainly understand why the Bears want some certainty, because when you're going to put a couple $1 billion in economic investment into an area, to have some of the numbers I've seen on what that potential property tax bill could be for them is astounding. So I think as long as we continue to work and talk through this, I'm hopeful we'll get to a solution.
What does that solution look like? Again, interesting to hear how this develops and evolves over time. And kind of talking about, hey, if we give the Bears and these mega projects, Bears or not, across the state, the ability to have local governments carve out property taxes and sales taxes for construction and such, if we give local governments that ability, then that's going to shift the burden onto the regular family and, their property taxes and their tax liability. And is that fair to do? And can you truly say that the offset of economic impact from having a mega project there, like a Bears stadium complex, is that really going to offset the burden on the taxpayers, that economic activity? So, I mean, the debate's going to be interesting to watch. And of course, they've got until May 31st, at least, to get the deal in regular session. Could they come back during veto session later on this year? Of course, we'll be watching all of that right here with Illinois in Focus. But what about those local governments? What do they think about the mega projects bill? Here's Brad Cole.
There have been several bills about mega projects. We officially have no position on it because it is ultimately a local decision. And we think that if the local officials, whether they're in Madison or Peoria or Mount Vernon or anywhere else, that if they want to make that deal that involves their local taxes or local incentives or other things, that they should have that authority to. And so organizationally, we step back from it because some may benefit, some may not, some may want to do it, some may not, and we think it's their choice.
Local control, one thing that the Illinois Municipal League regularly advocates for. Would this give locals the control to be able to make those decisions? I mean, the local governments are really, they're beholden to you, the local voter. And there's a lot of policies that local officials make that impact you directly. So, all right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. That's a roundup of what happened at the state capitol yesterday. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for hanging out. And don't forget the Center Square Daily later on today, right here where you find the Center Square.